Welcome back to Sipa's Pimmer Garage. In this video we are continuing this M52 NA project that I did set goal to get 300 horsepower out of this. If you are new to this channel and you don't know this project, I will highly recommend checking out the older videos before. I have playlist of those somewhere there. But anyways, in the previous video we got this running, well, barely running, but it was running, and now we will continue from that. I did come to the conclusion that the two used muffs I had were actually faulty. But there was another problem, that the engine did sound like 5-cylinder.
Käykö tuo kaikilla?
Cool as 5-cylinder engine sound, it wasn't good in this case. I did first check that are the cylinders even firing correctly, but all the exhaust primaries were equally hot, so no problem there. I was then wondering that maybe I checked the valve clearances wrong and there has been valve to piston contact already. It has actually happened for us in fresh builds after sitting a while, even with the correct valve clearance. So I did do compression check for all the cylinders. It turned out that 5 of the cylinders had nice and even 13 to 14 bar compression. But one cylinder showed 17 bars, which is weird. But I'm pretty sure that the lifters on that cylinders just aren't full yet, and in combination with the high duration cams and high compression ratio brings up the compression test numbers. The lifters at least were really loud at this point. So I was pretty sure that the problem will fix itself, and it did. I needed to run the engine for quite a while to finalize the 8 HP swap for this. So I just needed to focus on the muff issue. I did buy new OE Siemens video muff, and it was actually pretty cheap, because I have the E60 air filter box in this, and the muff is same as with the M52 engine. And after installing the new muff sensor, the engine did run super smooth, and it was really rev happy. At this point there were quite many events to attend, so I couldn't get much done for the car. And even after those events, I still needed to throw the car back together. Short ad break at this point. carVertical. It's a service that provides vehicle history checks online. It can show information if the car has been maybe crashed at some point, maybe mileage fraud, or maybe stolen or something like that. So it's really handy service to use. For example, I did try the carVertical on my car, this one exactly, because I know that I have swapped in the cluster to much lower mileage one. So let's check that does it show up on the carVertical. So this is the report on my car. So yeah, BMW 320i. Yeah, everything's okay. And it immediately says that there's something from the mileage. So let's go further down. Yeah, there's no problems. Everything's okay. But then if we check the mileage here, we can see that it's going up, and then it drops down to 18,000 kilometers. So yeah, it actually shows up that the mileage have been tampered in this one, so that's okay. We can also check another one, for example this one. This shows that there's some damage on the car, so if we scroll down further, we can see that this one has been actually crashed at some point. There's even photos when this has been on the auction site. So yeah, this is a really handy tool when you are buying car, even older one like this. So you can check the history that is that maybe crashed or stolen at some point, or maybe the mileage have been tampered. Because for example, if you find out that the mileage have been tampered and it's much lower than it actually is, so that's maybe good item negotiation of the price, or it can even prevent you buying from total lemon of car. Use code PASI88 to get 20% off from carVertical report. Let's continue on the video. My goal is to change this to more track-oriented car from the old stance or heavy car that this has been. So I did remove all the heavy hi-fi things from the car and I did only leave the most basic things installed. This already got me quite a bit of weight savings, but I did also remove all the easy to remove sound deadening from the car. I still need to remove all the glued down stuff, but that can happen later. For the track use, I did also swap out the really crappy stock seats to proper Spargo bucket seats. And I did get some sticky extreme semi-slicks from Keskikouri Motorsport. You might know the guy if you follow drifting. But that was pretty much what I had time to do for the car. Well, we did remove the middle resonator from the exhaust, but it was already late July at this time. So I needed to get this on the road to try to work out all the bugs in the setup before summer ends. So after a short few test drives, we concluded that the engine runs well and the HSP works too. So I can drive the car to my home from the garage. It was then time to get this through the Finnish MOT check after sitting in the garage for the past 6 years. Which should be easy because I had already asked the guys at the Top Katassus about the checking this car and there shouldn't be anything stopping it. But I still had problems with the ECU. It showed in the logs that the engine was running really lean. Basically so lean that it shouldn't run, but still it did run really nice, which was weird. I did try to flash in couple of tunes to make it richer, but the closer I got it to run correct Lambda, the worse the engine did run. And it smelled really bad. I did start to suspect that something wasn't right, but I also did manage to soft brick the ECU with my cheap INPA cable before figuring out what's wrong. Well, long trip later to the garage to get the proper Bimmer tuning tools cable, I got further in the investigation. I did mainly use BiteLocker tool to lock the ECU, and weirdly enough, it showed that the Lambda was now below 1 and the Lambda target was 1. But the ECU was still trying to trim the full amount richer, which cannot be true. I did then dig up the Lambda voltage to Lambda curve from the ECU, and then I did find out that Lambda value in the BiteLocker was totally off. So in reality, the Lambdas were reading too lean, but the Lambda values was too rich. But why it did run and smell like it was super rich? Well, I started doing some investigation on part numbers and wiring diagrams. These are the Lambda sensors that I installed in this, and these should be the correct part number. Same ones are used in USA versions of the E46, E60 and E83 with the MS41.1. The ECU is MS45.1 from the USA version of the E46, so all good there. But then something weird came up when I did investigate wiring diagrams on the IIS. This is the wiring diagram for E46 MS45.1 Lambda sensors. But this is the wiring diagram for E60 MS45.1. Notice anything weird? The pin numbers are different on those. If we check the E83 MS45.1 wiring diagram, it's the same as for E60. Now we are up to something. I did some investigation and I did find out that the E46 with the MS41.1 actually had two different types of wideband Lambda sensors. There's one used with the M56 SULEV versions and the other one is used with the ZHP versions. I had the ZHP versions, same as used with the E60 and the E83. This version seems to use the LSU 4.9 connector and the SULEV versions use the LSU 4.2 connector. The sensor is the same LSU 4.2 in both cases, but the pinout changes to the LSU 4.9 pinout with the connector. And the E46 wiring diagram is only for the LSU 4.2 connectors. Great! So I did repin the engine wiring harness for the LSU 4.9 pinout. I flashed it in my original tune and finally, it did now run really nicely and the fuel trims were acting correctly. I did also get external wideband controller on loan from my friend and I also got new CC Flash software from JUS Calibrations that he said that it will show the correct AFR for MS45.1. And would you know that? Now everything agrees with the AFR and the ECU trimming nicely to keep it at Lambda 1. Now it's finally time for the MOT check. And it failed. For some reason the engine still didn't run at the correct AFR and the emissions were off. And naturally the parking brake didn't work properly. Classic BMW. The parking brake was easy to fix, but there was also problems with the rear brake pads falling apart. So those needed to be replaced too. I'm planning to do big brake upgrade, so that's why I didn't bother checking those earlier. But about the failed emissions and wrong AFR. It turned out that the second Lambda sensor had died, probably because it had been connected wrong earlier. But it was a bit annoying that it died while driving to the MOT check. Well, a new Lambda sensor solves that. And with that, I got the MOT check passed and I could properly drive the car on the road. Or well, actually not. The transmission heat exchanger started leaking and it turned out that the plastic flange had warped and also the O-ring had been destroyed at the factory. Easy fix, but annoying thing to have in new Nissan's branded part. But at this point I got much better locks and I could start tuning the ECU. Tuning the fuel maps is quite easy on MS45.1 because it has the wideband O2 sensors. You can just set up the Megalock VEVOR to give out the fuel trims from the lock and adjust the fuel trim map accordingly. After a little bit of fine tuning to the fuel maps, I attended track day with the E36. I did try to do a little bit of ignition map tuning based on the log pools done on the track. And it seemed that I only needed to add degree of timing from my guessed values. But more accurate ignition tuning will need to wait for dyno.
Mikä pitoilussa on.
Joo. Pikkusen saastaa tosiaan alustalla kevympi tähän.
Joo.
Anyways, the engine and the trans worked really well on the track, but the car had some problems. The brakes were just absolutely horribly. And the extreme semi-slicks were so sticky that I bottomed out the suspension on the corners. It also needs LSD and shorter ratio and so on, but those can wait for later. Of course the new Mahle radiator started leaking too and I needed to fix that too. Not sure how long it will last because the metal was so soft that it doesn't really hold on the plastic end tanks. Anyways, after the track day I started tuning the DISA and the VANOS maps. Both of those are pretty much the same to tune. You set the DISA or the VANOS to one position, do full throttle pull from idle to limiter, and then change the tune to another position and do another pull, and so on. Then you can use Excel to see what settings work best for which RPM. The engine load is basically engine torque, so you do need XY scatter for the engine load and the RPM, and it shows you clearly how to modify the tune. This is for the DISA switch point for example. but the same method works for the intake and exhaust cam too. I got those pretty well dialed in, and the guys also helped me to make better exhaust for this. It's now 3 inch, and of course we needed to test out how it sounds without the muffler. Well, ear-piercingly loud, so I put on resonator and the old rear muffler. I just modified it so that it passes through it only once and instead of 3 times. So that's pretty much all that I managed to do for this before the summer ended, so no dyno or anything, because I did just run out of time to work on this car, so I needed to put this back on the garage for updates that you might be able to see here. But we can of course speculate the power because we have the MAF sensor that is measuring all the air that is coming inside the engine, and that's measuring something like 290 horsepower worth of air currently. That's like rough estimate, so not quite 300, but this is of course running E85 that will produce a little bit more power than pump gas, and of course this has much higher compression ratio, 14:1 instead of stock 10:1 or something like that. So both of those should increase the efficiency of this engine, and this should produce more power on the same air amount than normal stock engine would be. So I think it might be doing like 300 currently, I'm not sure, but it might be at least really close to that. I got the VANOS maps tuned like to maybe 95%, so there's not much to be gained there, and that's mostly low-end power. But there's one thing that I need to do for next summer, because if you can see there, it's sucking all the air through that port there, that basically it's taking only hot air from the engine bay. So the intake temps are quite high currently. I think those were like from 60 to 40 degrees, even like cold day. So yeah, that's far from good. So I think there's maybe 5 to 10 horsepower on the table because of that hot air. So I need to improve this intake. I will probably try to pipe from there all the way to the front of the car there. Normally you see all the intakes that take air from the fog light hole there, but that's not actually the optimal place. The best place to get the air is on the front grille here, because when you are driving the car faster, there's quite a bit extra pressure around here, not much here, so you get some kind of ram air effect if you can put the intake there. I don't know if there's room for that, but I will try. I think there should be room, but let's see if I can do that. And there's also a slight problem that I started to have this during the end of the summer, which is that the exhaust started to smell like really bad burning oil. It's not like normal burning oil that you can smell when the engine is burning oil, and there was no blue smoke or anything, or at least I didn't see if there's blue smoke. But anyways, the exhaust started smelling quite bad, like basically same as you drop oil on the exhaust manifold or something like that. So I was starting to get a little bit worried about that. It might be because of the breather setup. This is basically the cheapest breather setup there was available for these engines, and that could have already failed, and that's why it's maybe smoking oil. I don't know, that could be one thing. Of course, another thing would be that this is already broken, and that's why I want to now check inside the engine to see how's the condition in that. It still runs perfectly fine, and at least, as I said, I didn't see any blue smoke, but still I want to take a look at the cylinder bores and everything to see how's the condition in the engine. And this is where the second sponsor of this video comes in, VEVOR. They did send out this endoscope for me to test and show in this video. I have had this really cheap endoscope that you can see here. This one that doesn't even articulate in the end, and you will plug this in the phone and so on. And this has like worked okay, but the picture quality sucks, and the biggest problem in this that there's no articulation in this end, so you cannot turn this around. So I have actually needed to take apart one engine, even though I didn't need to do that, because I didn't see what was the problem because of this one. So yeah, this isn't great, and of course you need to also install the shady Chinese app on your phone that you don't know what this does with all your contacts and everything. And that app doesn't even work in my current phone because it's so outdated. So yeah, this is crap. Luckily VEVOR sent me much better one, so let's take a look about this. this has their own screen, and I think the end in this should articulate, so it should be much better. So let's see. Yeah, so that's the end, and I think from this we can turn that. Yeah, you can look all the way up on the valves and then on the other direction. Yeah, and I think this is quite small. This is even like 6-point-something millimeters. So you can use this even in the modern engines that have really tiny spark plugs. But anyways, let's put on the screen and take apart the engine. Well, not take apart. Let's remove the coils and the spark plugs so we can try this on the engine. The plugs, by the way, look perfect. But let's now try this one. So we have the screen here and it plugs in here like this. And this should be ready to use now. So this was the articulation here. Then we have the button to adjust the brightness of the light and then button to take the picture. And here we have few more buttons. So we have the power button, settings. There's a plus and minus, so there's the digital zoom, and then that button, I'm not 100% sure, we need to check that. And then we have button to take a picture and take a video. So let's turn this on. And yeah, this has SD card here, and it came with the SD card, so you can take those pictures and the videos on that SD card and check those on your PC. And it seems to even have USB-C, so this is fairly modern one, not the micro USB. But anyway, it seems to be fully charged from the package, so let's try this on the car. Okay, so I'll put this on record, so I will hold down this record button here, so it will take a video for you, and let's check the first one. I think that might be, yeah, that's really high up, so we cannot see much. With quick glance, this looks okay, but let's check the next one. Yeah, this is much lower. The cross-hatching looks really nice. There's a little bit scratches there. Yeah, it's really nice that you can actually now turn and handle this, so that you can actually, if you go lower, I think we should be also see the, this is so high. Let's check the center ones. Okay, this is much lower down, so we can actually see some stuff. So if we turn this around, cross-hatching seems really nice. But there's unfortunately some scratches on this cylinder, like that. Is there on the other side? Yeah, there's scratches too, so that's that's not great. I won't be taking apart this engine because of that, but that's something that I need to keep an eye. And if we turn this around, we should be seeing the valves. So there's one valve there, another valve there. Yeah, those look really clean and pretty much perfect, so no problem there. But yeah, those scratches on the sidewalls, those are a little bit concerning, but I will keep an eye of those. Next one, number 4. Again, yeah, there's much worse scratches on this one. Those are probably something that you can even feel with your finger, so not great. Much lighter ones on this side, but not great. Let's check if we turn this around. You can really nicely check the valves with this one. And yeah, those scratches, those are not great. I need to keep an eye of those. Next one. Yeah, maybe I will rotate the engine so that I can see those better. Okay, so this is now the cylinder number 1 that we couldn't see earlier. Yeah, there's same kind of scratches there also. Cross-hatching looks really nice, and same scratches there also. Top side looks really nice. Yeah, there's at least no carbon buildup here, so I don't know if that smell is even coming from the engine. Of course there's those scratches, but anyways, so this is number 6. This is maybe the blackest one there is. That's quite weird. We have the good cross-hatching there, little bit scratches. And also more scratches. But those are really light ones, not optimal to have, but yeah, But there's a little bit black here, so I think this cylinder might be getting oil somewhere. Maybe from the breather, like I anticipated or something, because yeah, this is much blacker than the other ones. But it's not from the cylinder walls, because those are much better than the second one, third one, for example. So this is now cylinder 5. Yeah, really light scratching. But this piston also has some black there, so I think this could be burning some oil or something. Yeah, really weird shape on that black spot, but yeah, and let's check the second one. Yeah, little bit scratches there also. So yeah, that's how this thing works. This is really handy thing to check the engines or anything that you need to access to really small holes like that. And because you have the articulation like this, you can fully check the engine inside and out. So yeah, I can highly recommend this one. This is rather cheap. I think this was a little bit over 100 euros. So for that price, this seems to be really good product. So yeah, good addition here on the garage. And I will put links on the description that you can get these ones. And also the discount code for 5% for anything that you buy from VEVOR. But anyways, the engine, there was some good and bad. It seemed to be really clean and it didn't seem to be burning oil, at least based on the soot amount inside the engine. Of course, E85 washes down the cylinders a little bit, so that's why there isn't that much soot there if it's burning oil. The cross-hatching and all that seemed great, but there was those scratches, at least the cylinder number 3 that has some deeper scratches, so I need to keep an eye how that develops, and if it gets really bad, I think I need to take apart the engine. So for now, I think that's fine, but I need to keep that on eye so that those scratches get worse over time. But I think that's all that I wanted to talk about this engine on this video. I know that you want to see this engine on dyno, but unfortunately I don't have it on this video. But before we brought this engine to this garage, we did put on some spikes and try this on the icy road. So yeah, at least you can get some kind of idea how this works and how this sounds now. So yeah, let's watch that clip before we end this video.
Niin.
Se on tuolla pölyä keräämässä jo pitkään.